The following program is to provide entertainment and information. It is not considered to be any legal or investment advice. Good morning, appraisers. Let's talk some real estate. You're listening to the Voice of Appraisal, the #1 appraisal podcast in all of America that always brings you the latest news and information from the front lines of the real estate market. Anything from market conditions, appraisal regulations, cryptocurrencies, big bank news. Folks, you have a question, we have all of your answers. We are the one-stop source for all of your real estate appraisal needs. If you want to be in the know, you've definitely tuned in to the right show. I'm Phil Crawford. Happy to have all of you here with us today. Kevin, I'm going to read something to you.
Hot off the press.
I'm going to read something to you right now. When you have people in roles for long periods of time who are friends for years and they work in the regulatory space and then in the nonprofit advocacy space and then in the for-profit space, and all of these interests are entangled, it's a situation that is ripe for corruption and self-dealing. Dr. Cindy Chance, former ex-CEO of the Appraisal Institute in BizNow. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? A scathing assessment of the Appraisal Institute and what is going on in Chicago. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. For those of you that don't know, Cindy Chance, the former CEO of the Appraisal Institute, was recently fired. She was only on the job for 13 months, and quite possibly she was the most popular CEO that the Appraisal Institute has ever had. She was out there. She was standing up for real estate appraisers. She was pushing advocacy for appraisers, especially all of you that are those SRA appraisers, those residential appraisers. She was out there pushing advocacy for you. She was standing up for the profession. Things were going great, and then all of a sudden, just recently, she was fired. So I have no idea what happened. The Appraisal Institute is a very secret group. They have secret meetings. They make announcements about their secret meetings. Some of the announcements are so secret you don't even talk about how secret the announcements are in their secret meetings. And now, of course, Cindy Chance, it's a big secret that she was ever the CEO. As a matter of fact, they're trying to do everything they can to get her name away from the Appraisal Institute on the internet right now.
So in other words, she should not be spoken.
She is the CEO that shall not be spoken. Shall not be spoken. No one will ever talk about Cindy Chance ever again. So, Kevin, the only thing that we can do on this show, since we cover all the news and information about the appraisal industry, is speculate as to what happened over the last 13 months with Cindy Chance being the CEO. So as I can tell, everything was going great for Cindy in 2024. What ended up happening was in February of 2024, the former CEO before Cindy, his name is Jim Amron. He had some sort of midlife crisis, and he wrote a letter to Sandra Adamitis, who is the Appraisal Institute's current president, and also to Paula Konikoff, who is I think she's the incoming president for next year. He wrote a letter to both of them in February of 2024, slamming Cindy Chance, slamming her, saying, just having some issues with her, having issues as to where she's going and all these things. He's talking about moss growing underneath his feet because he's kind of bored and stuff. He kind of sounds like he's going through something, right?
Sour grape.
Little midlife crisis. He's getting a little bit older,
Okay.
Most men his age will basically drop 10 pounds, go to the gym, and talk to the doctor about taking some HGH. Okay, but instead, he's going to write a letter about the sitting CEO. So that's Jim Amron, right?
Okay.
So he writes a letter complaining about the CEO, Cindy Chance, and Paula and Sandra Adamitis basically come back and say, you know what? We're going to stay with Cindy. Okay, we're going to give Cindy the chance that she deserves. Thanks a lot, Jim. We really appreciate it. And we're going to stay with Cindy Chance's leadership and where she's taking us. So that was around February of 2024. That was basically quarter one.
Okay.
Quarter one looked good. Quarter two, I did get some information from quarter number two. However, the Appraisal Institute has taken this down off of their website now.
Gee.
So yeah, I know. Remember when I say they're going to get rid of her, I mean they're going to get. It's super secret, Kevin. It's super secret. So the quarter number two, this is July 19th, 2024. The second quarter saw an increase onboarding of professional resources needed to reverse long-term declines. Okay, she's in the right position. And to reset the organization into a positive footing, as well as continued cost-cutting and improvements in member service operations, along with major upgrades in the quality of staff and the professional resources, and greatly improved teamwork and productivity. It all seems like everything was going really well. As a matter of fact, a lot of people were thinking about joining the Appraisal Institute. I've never joined an organization at all because Cindy was talking about not only being a leadership for the Appraisal Institute, but being a voice in a leadership position for all appraisers throughout the country. So she was really pulling in a lot of people. Everybody was pretty happy. Something happened between the second quarter and the third quarter of 2024 where things went downhill really fast. And I can only speculate, but given the information that we have out there in the web, I kind of got a good idea as to what was taking place. Now, for those of you that don't know, the last time we left you with Kelly, Queen of David's coronation. Do you remember that?
Right. Yes.
Kelly Davids has become the new president of the Appraisal Foundation in Washington, D.C. One of the very first things she did over the summertime was allow Riva to join the Industry Advisory Council at the Appraisal Foundation. So for those of you that don't know, Riva is the Vatican City of the AMC religion. That's where all the money flows from the big AMCs across the country is into Riva. Riva has now joined the Appraisal Foundation, has become a sponsor in the Industry Advisory Council, the IAC. I got to stand up for Kelly a little bit because they probably legally meet the criteria of joining the IAC. So if Kelly were to come out and say, no, guys, you can't join, or we're not going to let you join us, be a sponsor, she probably would have gotten sued at that time. Okay, so Riva obviously made a big move over the summertime because they've had, 10 years? I mean, we've been on the show for like 10 years.
10 years.
I busted them out big time about 10 years ago in Vegas. Remember a big 5-on-1 fight? That was before they even became Riva at that time.
Right.
I think they were called like the National Appraisal Congress or something.
Something weird.
Yeah, and they've had like 10 years to join the TAF. So why do they join it now? They're making a push. About this time, Cindy starts hitting some nerve. So what Cindy did was she had a release. It was a newsletter that she would put out every week called From Cindy's Desk. So I'm going to read from one of the last entries from Cindy's desk. She writes, "Last week I hit a nerve with some comments about the value of appraisers and predatory AMCs not respecting that value. I got many notes from appraisers who were supportive and very few from AMCs. One of which was downright upset. How did AMCs become such a powerful market player, and how do they affect real property valuations? Well, AMCs, or appraisal management companies, function as intermediaries between banks and appraisers to ensure the integrity and independence of the appraisal process. The use of AMCs by lenders grew greatly following the financial crisis of 2008 and Andrew Cuomo's overreaching attempt to universally apply his home valuation code of conduct." Now remember, Andrew Cuomo sat on the board of AMC. So just so you know, that's kind of how that all worked. The theory was, my ass, it was a plan. The theory was that AMCs would streamline the process and ensure quality control and compliance. What has actually happened? AMCs have created a race to the bottom in terms of fees paid to professionals and time spent on appraisals. Why? Because there was more money to be made being in the middle, and there was nothing to stop AMCs from raising their fees while they reduced the fees they paid to appraisers. The public was not aware of this because AMCs do not need to disclose their fees, something the Appraisal Institute has long supported. The regulatory oversight of AMCs appears inconsistent and lacking in protections for the consumer. So she's getting upset about this. Any market that requires transparency and by the way, she's a PhD in ethics.
Right.
She has a PhD in ethics. I mean, that's some serious stuff there.
Listen again. She's a PhD
in
ethics.
In ethics, yes. And they fired her. Great optics. Great optics. Any market requires transparency to remain healthy and thrive. Appraisers are highly trained professionals essential to the real estate markets and very capable of thriving in a fair, competitive market. When they are managed, in quotations, by AMCs, a lack of transparency regarding the value they produce for the fees that the appraiser earns is a risk to a healthy market. A healthy market is transparent and competitive with oversight that protects and respects the consumer and the public trust. What is wrong with what she's saying? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. This is exactly what we needed from the Appraisal Institute.
It's like getting a breath of fresh air.
This was a breath of fresh air. This was it. This was exciting. She continues, in today's world, many AMCs bid out work, sometimes by sending a text notification of an appraisal assignment and then quickly awarding the appraisal to the lowest bidder. I was shocked this fall to see some appraisers jumping to bid for these jobs. Appraisers who know what it takes to do quality appraisals are often left shaking their heads, asking why would anyone take a job at that price for such a short turnaround time. AMCs are also increasing the use of data property collectors to inspect the subject property to increase efficiency. The public should be concerned that appraisal management companies who were supposed to help protect them from another financial crisis have been reducing the fees paid to appraisers through those means and increasing their take of the consumer's dollar with no serious response from the banks or the government. I am certain that there are ethical AMCs who best apply practices and work to ensure high-quality appraisals. I want to hear from them. If you are an ethical, consumer-focused AMC, your work is getting a bad name because of your practices of the predatory AMCs, bad actors who are harming the system that they were created to protect. Stand up and tell us how you ensure excellence by upholding high ethics, professional standards, and protecting the consumers. To the residential appraisers, please join the Appraisal Institute. We will fight for what is right, and there is strength in numbers. Tell us your stories so that we can help the public to understand what is happening. Together, we can make a difference. Your work has value, and you need to be paid fairly for the time it takes to do it well. We are committed to getting the message to consumers. The appraisers perform an essential function in our economic system, and anything that interferes with the professionalism and quality of the appraisal is a risk to the public. And it is sad indeed that many AMCs put in place to ensure the quality of appraisals are doing just the opposite.
Wow.
Boom! Boom! Boom, boom, boom! Drop the mic. Boom, boom, boom. Can you believe that? Right there. Right there.
She put it all out
She
there.
put it all out there. All of you ethical AMCs, share us your stories. Nope, there's no phone calls there. There's no highlight on this ethical AMC. No, you're fired. You're fired.
That's the problem. She said ethical.
Ethical. She's using the word ethical. She's gone. She's gone on that one. Absolutely gone. That was it right there. And that and probably some other things, too. The whole Jim Amron letter, that doesn't really surprise me. You're going to get that in every membership organization. Always going to be members out there kind of, spatting around with each other. But to know that was a direction that Cindy Chance was taking the Appraisal Institute, and then all of a sudden she's gone, then you know what happened. You know what happened. When situations like this happen, you know what happened. She got in the way of the money. And when you get in the way of the money is going to get you out of the way. And that's what happened. Cindy Chance got in the way of the money. She was standing up for real estate appraisers across the country, and she was standing up for you, and they got rid of her. That means if she got in the way of the money standing up for you, you are in the way of the money yourself. There's about 30 to 40,000 of you. Some of you have SRA designations. They're so close. They're so close to appraisal modernization. They're so close to getting rid of you, to anaconda you, to strangle you, because it's all part of the plan, Kevin.
Because it's all part of the plan.
It's part of the plan, Kevin. It's part of the plan.
Part of the plan.
And they're so close, Kevin. They're so close to it right now. They're almost there. But Cindy Chance was in the way. And you, 30,000, 40,000 real estate appraisers out there that are uploading to the UDPC, a lot of you have SRA designation. You are standing in the way of the money. Something else happened, Kevin. Something else happened this summer that was absolutely unbelievable. The appraiser coach. Dustin Harris, the appraiser coach, after 955 episodes and 9 years of being on that podcast, he finally had an appraisal-gasm. Yes! Dustin Harris finally had an appraisal-gasm on episode number 955. Kevin, let's pull up the coach. Let's pull up the coach and listen to his appraisal-gasm. Go for it.
I firmly believe that appraisers will have a job into the future because, if for nothing else, Fannie Mae wants that stamp. They want that person. They want that human being. They want that license number on that report. Let's face it, so they can point fingers. They don't want to point fingers at a computer. They want to point fingers at you if it goes bad.
Jeez.
I know that's not a great reason to want to be an appraiser, but I'm just talking reality here. Again, not prediction or not promotion, prediction. If you're not on board with this, you're not paying attention.
Oh, and he said that.
Now, you might have a different opinion of how it rolls out, but the modernization of the real estate appraiser and the real estate appraisal process is in the works.
And nothing's going to stop
moving
it.
Forward,
and nothing's going to stop it.
It's there.
Not even the CEO.
And we're seeing it more and more and more. If you're paying attention, if you're reading this start and stop that Fannie Mae has done prior to the pandemic, during the pandemic, after the pandemic, this start and stop thing that they've done with modernization is not going away. It's continuing, and it will continue
by any means
until
necessary.
they get where they want to go.
Boom!
Could I be wrong?
Yes, yes. Give me one more. Give me one more appraisal gasm on that one, Kevin, because we got a little shout out to Dustin Harris. 955 episodes. He nails it right on the head. Appraisal modernization will continue. It will continue by any means necessary. It doesn't matter if you're the president of the Appraisal Institute, the CEO of the Appraisal Institute, the president of the Appraisal Foundation. The appraisal modernization movement will move forward until we achieve universal basic real estate valuation. Yes. And that's what it is. That's what they want, Kevin. Yes. Universal basic real estate valuation. That's what it is right there. Cindy Chance showed us a lot of things. She led the appraisal industry in the right direction. The money. She got in the way of the money. And when you're in the way of the money will get you out of the way. For those of you that are SRAs, for those of you that are residential members of the Appraisal Institute, look, I haven't been an SRA. It's your money. You do what you want with it. But I'd sit there if I were you, and I'd seriously ask your leadership. I'd go up and ask your leadership. I'd ask all the presidents, Sandra Adamitis and Paula Konikoff, and past presidents like Craig Steinle and Joe Ibach, and all of these guys. Ask them straight out, how much influence do the appraisal management companies have over you? That's the question that you want to know. It doesn't matter about this committee or that committee or what are you doing here, what are you doing there. Actually, one committee is really important. I'll talk about it in just a minute. But the big question is, if you're going to be the president of the Appraisal Institute, if you're going to be one of these leads or one of these directors or one of these leadership guys, what influence do the appraisal management companies have over you personally and professionally? That's what you need to know.
And also, if you are the CEO of the Appraisal Institute,
yes,
don't ask for ethical AMC.
No, there was no response. there was just no response. So how much influence does Riva have in the Appraisal Institute space? And that's what they need to look at. That's what you need to look. If you're an SRA, if I were you, next time they have one of these big groups or one of these big meetings or something like that, I mean, go there with a couple of picket lines and say, hey, I'm an SRA. What are you going to do for me today? Hey, I'm an SRA. What are you going to do for me today? Hey, I'm an SRA. What are you going to do for me today? Yeah. Oh, yeah. There it is right there. Presidents, vice presidents, directors. Are you controlled by these appraisal management companies? Because they have one job and one job only, to get rid of 30,000 appraisers. It's the truth. It's the truth. Dustin Harris said it. Everybody knows it. It's the quiet part out loud that no one wants to talk about. They've got to get rid of 30,000 appraisers. They're going to go to those $25 an hour valuation analysts. Of the 30,000 that are uploading to UDPC right now, I'd say let's just do the math really quick. Let's just game plan it out. Of the 30,000, I'd say within the next 2 or 3 years, 5,000, maybe 7,000 are dead or retired. Okay, so that leaves you about 22,000, right? Of the 22,000, I just need 5,000 to handle the weird deals, the complicated ones that are not done through bifurcated products. All the rest of it will just flow through the appraisal management companies and their staff appraisers. Every one of them have staff appraisers. And if Dustin Harris is right, which he is, if they have to point fingers, have to put the blame on somebody, it's easier to fire an employee than it is to take out someone that's a professional. So that's what they're going to do. It's as simple and easy as that. It's all part of the plan. We've been talking about this for like 7 years. You know, we saw it coming. So, Appraisal Institute.
I just wonder if the people out there, the members of the Appraisal Institute, can get together and say, we want Cindy back.
I don't think Cindy's ever going to go back. Now, here's the good news. Okay, now this is the good news. This is the really good news. There's a lot of floods out there. Mm-hmm. There's a floodwaters of all this shit at the Appraisal Institute. Right. There's all this floodwaters of corruption and self-dealing and self-interest. The Appraisal Foundation, when they had their hearings, it was all the floodwaters of self-interest, right? When the floodwaters are rising this much, then you need to build an ark. And we have built an ark. Lori Noble and Josh Tucker have built the ark. It stands for the Appraiser Regulatory Compliance Council. ARC is the name of it. It's a non-profit organization. I am not involved with it. Kevin Kinney's not involved with it. So if you're one of our lovers, that's cool. If you're one of our haters, then we got some haters out there. I am not involved with ARC. I've got too many other things going on. Lori Noble, Josh Tucker, they're doing great things over at ARC. And just recently, the Appraiser Regulation Compliance Council put out a study that they had done about the markups on some of these AMCs in the consumer space. And some of these AMCs that are on this list, we're talking 65% markup, 84% markups. I mean, these are...
Which, in my opinion, should be criminal.
Well,
I'm sorry, but it should be.
Well, criminal or, I mean, there's Rohit Chopra. And Rohit Chopra's out there with the CFPB saying, listen, we're sick and tired of all these junk fees, right? Do they know that something's coming down the pike? I mean, we're talking about, 84% markups on these appraisal fees, and he's upset about $35, markups on luggage in airports and stuff.
Right.
So this right here, he's going to have to look at it. So this is ARC. Now, ARC is not a membership organization. I know a lot of people after Cindy was fired, some people said, listen, we need to start up a new organization, a new membership. I'm just giving you my advice on this. We don't need another membership organization. And the reason why is because organized real estate as a whole is under attack. You saw what's happening with the National Association of Realtors. I don't think the NAR is going to be in existence much longer. I give it about another 2 years tops. So organized real estate as a whole, membership-wise, under complete attack for conflicts of interest, self-dealing, all of these things. I think this is a better model. I think ARC being a nonprofit organization, I'm going to donate to ARC is what I'm going to do. I think the donations to ARC is a better resource than having a membership organization, in my personal opinion. And hopefully, what will happen, because you asked me, maybe they'll bring Cindy back. Hopefully, Cindy will become a contributor to ARC. That's what I'm really hoping happens. So hopefully, she will be a contributor to ARC. And then as ARC grows, they will continue to put out more and more working papers, more and more information that appraisers can use. And then hopefully, they'll be able to get a nice benefactor that will be able to, give them money so they can have a budget every single year. I'm hoping this happens because The bottom line is this. If you want a voice in the appraisal space, you have to now be your own voice. It can't be the Appraisal Institute. Right. It can be Kevin and I, but we're very limited. You have to be your own voice within inside of your own area. And if ARC can start putting out data and information that appraisers can use within inside of their local marketing area, that would be phenomenal because then appraisers can be their own voice. There's no other voice for the 30,000 to 40,000 working real estate appraisers in America today. There's just no other voice. Cindy was it on a national level, and that was it. Now, here's a couple other things I want you guys to focus in on. And this especially goes to the Appraisal Institute because you're going to get your ass fried on this in about 2 years. Because I know all of you up there, you're having a good time. You're writing notes to each other and all these things. But this is serious because this is probably going to go in front of the Supreme Court. So just recently, best-selling author and American treasure Jeremy Baggett was on a podcast called The Real Estate Mindset. I would recommend all of you listen to that podcast. The Real Estate Mindset podcast. It's hosted by two guys that are starting a lawsuit in Texas. And this lawsuit has to do with the CADs, the County Auditor Districts. And what they're saying is that property taxes are too high. Mm-hmm. Property taxes are based on fraudulent activity in the market. They're going to create a lawsuit against these auditor districts, okay? One of the bases of their argument is, and it's the argument that we've been using many times on this show. We've talked about it many times on this show. I've never heard anything whatsoever come out of the Appraisal Institute when it comes to this. It's our segment called You and Me and the Big Fan E. You and Me and the Big Fan E. And I have been calling out Fannie Mae for a long time about these appraisal waivers, the appraisal purchase waivers. I call them data cancer, okay? These guys out of Texas are going to focus in on this data cancer. These sales that take place that are not verified, and they're going to probably try to find a way to show that those sales have bumped up the market, very similar to the information that was put out by the American Enterprise Institute several years ago. And then they can use that as part of their argument that these assessments are in fact fraudulent. So listen to the words value fraud. Okay, I'm just giving you the heads up on it.
Right.
They're going to bring the argument of value fraud, and one of the arguments they're going to use is the data cancer argument.
Right, I was going to mention about that too. A long time ago, even before we were mentioning this, we mentioned about the data cancer, garbage in, garbage out, no matter. And now we're seeing the end result of it, and the appraisers in Texas.
Yeah, and the end result is going to end up being a case in front of the Supreme Court is what it's going to end up being. Property tax is going to be a hot topic no matter what going forward because everybody's property taxes are up like crazy.
Right.
And if they can prove that because the GSEs were pushing the I Love Appraisal Waiver campaign and I Embraced Value Acceptance campaign, which is basically the appraisal waiver at the time of the purchase, they're going to be in trouble. And they're going to go to the Appraisal Institute. And they're going to say, Appraisal Institute, what is your position on this? What do you think about this? What's going on here? And they're going to be like, I don't know. We fired the CEO that knows what the she's talking about, so I don't really know what's going on here. And then that's when the Appraisal Institute is going to look like a bunch of idiots.
Right. My big question for you is, when do you think Fannie is finally going to quit pissing in the wind?
They won't. They will not stop the appraisal waivers until Congress gets involved, until the FHFA gets involved and says, stop with the embracing of value acceptance, stop with the appraisal waivers on the purchase transactions. Knock it off. They need and they've already done the damage. They've already done the damage from 2021, 2022. It's out there. Now what's happening is because of that policy, because of the I Love Appraisal Waivers policy, you have people in Cincinnati, throughout the entire country, that can't afford their grocery bill and they can't afford the property tax. All because of your stupid appraisal waiver policy. You have real estate agents that are probably going to get their ass sued in a couple of years. Here's a dirty little secret that none of you have thought about. If you waive the appraisal during the purchase transaction and the buyer's agent didn't tell the buyer that they should get their own appraisal, and everybody's just jumping up and down and having a good time because you're going to go to closing and there's not going to be appraisal, but no appraisal was done in that contract. So does that mean that the contract was fully executed?
No.
No, the answer is no. The contract most likely was not fully executed. So if the value of the property goes down, the buyer goes, wait a second, we overpaid for this property. Why do we overpay for it? Well, they got an appraisal waiver. Well, we signed the appraisal waiver's disclosure form. That's great. But our agent, our real estate agent, that overpaid real estate agent because Zitzer and Burnett and Kirchmeier says that they're overpaid, that stupid son of a never told us to go get our own appraisal. So we're going to sue them instead. Where is the Appraisal Institute? And I know that you have this committee. Right. I just know it doesn't meet. Okay, I got some inside information on this. And maybe we need to hear from Sandy Adamitis on this while she's still the president, because the CEO's not there anymore. Does the Appraisal Institute have a GSE committee? Because I've heard you've got one. I heard you have a GSE committee out there. Have you brought this up with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? Have you wizards of smart thought this through and called up Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and said, wait a second, if you have appraisal waivers on purchase transactions, you're going to create data cancer. You're going to jump the value. American Enterprise Institute is already backing us up on this. What do you think is going on? Are you going to do that, or are you so beholden to the AMCs that work for the gigantic GSEs that you're just going to say, okay, whatever? You're going to be like a rating agency before the great collapse. Remember from The Big Short, the lady just had her eyes worked on a little bit. Oh, yeah, I can't see shit today, but we still rated the bond AAA. Yeah, that's what's going to end up happening. I'm just giving you a heads up right now. Now that Cindy's gone, I'm just going to have to give you a little bit of heads up because they're going to come after you and they're going to say what's going on here. All of the SRAs out there, the SRAs are good appraisers. They're good residential appraisers. They deserve so much better. Are you going to protect them? You got 30,000. You got 30 to 40,000. Are you going to protect them, or are you going to allow universal basic valuation to come into play? Strangle these guys out. So that way the AMCs can come in with their quote-unquote valuation experts at $25 and $27 an hour. And nothing wrong with making $25 and $27 an hour. I'm not saying that. But that's a job. That's not a profession.
Correct.
An SRA is a professional. A valuation analyst is a person that has a job. An SRA gives you a profession. A valuation analyst through Perea gives you a job.
My point is, what do you think the AMCs would prefer to pay? Would they rather pay the appraiser like $300-$400 for the appraiser?
Yes.
Or somebody $25 an hour?
$25 an hour. $25. But that was our very first show of this year, wasn't it?
Yep.
$25 an hour. This isn't rocket science. That's why we did Appraiser Fest. That's why I personally funded $100,000 to the Appraiser Fest conference back in 2018 because it was imperative that you found a different clientele. You found a different group of people to work with because we all knew it was coming. We knew appraisal modernization was coming. If you doubt me, I've got 10 years worth of podcasts that warns about this time and time and time again. But I would just have thought that the Appraisal Institute, bringing on somebody like Cindy Chance, stands up for appraisers, goes against what I consider to be the AMC model, the corporate appraisal propaganda, and she's fired.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then she has her legs thrown out from under her.
She got in the way of the money, and when you get in the way of the money will get you out of the way. It's as simple and easy as that. I wish her the best. I hope she does start working with ARC a little bit. I wish all of the AMCs that do work in Virginia, I wish you the best, because Pat Turner's over there. He's on the Real Estate Appraisers Board, and he's not going to mess around. No. You're not going to mess around with 00004. You better mind your P's and Q's. That's all I got to say. So, listen, guys, I'm going to do a couple more podcasts for this year. But personally, my son was home from college, and I wanted to spend a lot of time with him over summertime. And my daughter, God love her, she had to have a couple of surgeries done. And we're done, but we're not done. You know how it is. And I'm going to spend a lot of time with family. And I've got a lot of projects going on, too, into the fall. So you'll probably get one or two more podcasts this year. Also, Cindy Chance does have an open invitation to the podcast. She does know that, and she will be joining us at the proper time. Not now. Well, she's got some decisions to make in her life, I'm sure. But Appraisal Institute, SRAs. Hey, I'm an SRA. What are you going to do for me today? That is what you need to be saying to all of the leadership up there in Chicago, because right now it's not looking too good, and it's not looking very smart at all. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our show, and as always, I would like to thank you for listening. As we journey through the mysteries and complexities that are, in fact, the real estate appraisal business, I would like to thank my producer, Kevin Kinney, for being here for his thoughtful insight-in knowledge. I'd like to thank the appraiser coach, Dustin Harris, for kindly having his first appraisal gasm. Yes, and telling the truth on his podcast. You rock it, Dustin. You rock it. In the meantime, all of you kiss your spouse. You hug your children. Enjoy your day. Be safe in the field. You've been listening to Phil Crawford on the Voice of Appraisal podcast. We'll talk very soon.